In this video, we'll take a look at a consideration for bit settings for 3 PCC phones that are deployed with WebEx Calling. If you notice status issues regarding 3 PCC phones that are deployed with WebEx Calling, the example I have right now on the screen is actually a functioning phone. If you notice, it says online, there's a green status for the phone. The phone also has the WebEx Aware icon, and it also shows registered. This is normally what should be seen with a functioning phone and WebEx Control Hub. The specific scenario we're looking at in this video is if the phone is registered. So from a SIP standpoint, you can make calls, receive calls. The user of the phone, from their perspective, they notice no issues. The phone is fully functioning. However, from a WebEx Control Hub admin standpoint, what you're noticing is the phone is not showing an online status. The phone is showing like an offline status or some other status, but yet the user is reporting everything's functioning. So if this type of issue is seen with the 3 PCC phones in WebEx Control Hub, to change the DF bit, the do not fragment bit setting may be needed, and this issue may be seen with PPPoE deployments. So your internet access provider will be using PPPoE, typically residential type of provisioning, or certain areas may only offer WAN services that use the PPoE type of deployment. The other one may be SD-WAN, software-defined WAN deployments. And there may be a third scenario type of deployment where it's kind of a question mark what may really kind of, as far as underlying technology within the WAN, may trigger this type of symptom. I'll give you one example. One of the deployments there for this site, there was a service provider A. The issue was starting to notice on service provider A where phones were showing not being online, yet they were functioning. And then at the same site, they had service provider B. In that case, as a test scenario, what was done was the VoIP VLAN was actually moved over to service provider B. The issue went away. There were no changes on the firewall, the routing equipment. As far as the equipment that was customer premise controlled, there was no changes. The only change was going from service provider A and moving the VoIP VLAN to service provider B and issuing away. Unfortunately, no good feedback could be gotten from service provider A what exactly was occurring perhaps within their domain. So often these types of cases, there could be a level of mystery as far as what is the root cause, as far as from the phone to the cloud, along the pathway, where could the issue be related to the fragmentation causing this type of symptom. So we'll take a look at a vintage RFC. This is back from September 1991, one of the original RFCs for Internet Protocol. And specifically, we're going to look at control flags. The specific control flag we're going to look at in this case is going to be position bit number 1. And for this bit in position number 1, if it is set to 0, this controls the do not fragment function within the IP packet. If it's set to 0, then that packet is eligible to be fragmented. If it is set to a 1, it is not eligible to be fragmented. And so this is kind of a basic graphic. They kind of show bit position 1. This is do not fragment, and this is going to be fragment. And the bottom one is equal to 0 value, and the top one is equal to a 1 value. So by default within WebEx Control Hub, this is what the actual phones are set to. They're set to this setting where it says yes for disable do not fragment. and that is equal to a 0 for the do not fragment setting, meaning it is not set. And again, 0 equals where the packet may be fragmented, basically. So this is what may lead to some of the mysterious symptoms where the phone is fully functioning. However, within Control Hub, as far as you as an administrator, the phone is not showing online, but the actual user using the phone, they don't notice any issues as far as they can receive calls, make calls. So one of the things you may want to consider is, and this is something you would need to open up a case with Cisco technical support, is having this setting set to no. This is something that is not offered within Control Hub as far as a setting that's visible to you. So you'd want to have them set this to no on the back end. I would first test this maybe on 1 or 2 phones, just as a test run to make sure this actually addresses the issue and there's not something else occurring, because there's some other situations that can give this same type of symptom. So once this is set to no on the phone, what you should see is the do not fragment should be set to a value 1, high value if you will, and a value of 1 would equal where the packet is not eligible to be fragmented. During the troubleshooting, some of the things that should be considered is you definitely want to generate a debug level purity from the phone itself, and also capturing a 5+ minute PCAP on a switch port where the phone is located at, and really taking a look at both of these to see what kind of evidence it offers. As I mentioned, it is possible this same type of symptom can be caused by other factors, potentially security settings on the firewall as far as some of the traffic being blocked, and there's other possibilities also, NAT issues, etc., depending on the situation with the actual network deployment at the edge, security layers, and also how the traffic's being handled. But in any case, I would say at a minimum we want to do a debug level purity from the phone that's having an issue. We want to do a PCAP capture, a Wireshark capture, I would say at least 5 minutes on a switch port where the phone is located at, and this should give us a pretty good understanding evidence-wise what is occurring. And in the debug level purity, you should see evidence of communication issues for some of the traffic flows. Be aware that the debug level purity is not equivalent to a PCAP. So this is more the logging that the phone itself is generating. So this is why it's also critical to have a PCAP, a Wireshark capture, because this is really where it's going to show the phone trying to make TCP connections. And at times you just see the TCP connections, nothing is coming back from the cloud or from the internet side. And the phone will retry, it'll give up, then it'll create a new TCP session, and again it'll kind of look at like it's working for a point of time, and then suddenly the phone will send out TCP connections, but nothing's coming back as far as TCP packets. Those are some of the patterns to kind of look for. And then one of the strategies you can do is you can analyze and compare a debug level purity and PCAP from a phone that is having issues versus a phone that is not having issues. And one of the things that I'm a big fan of, if possible, is typically in most situations you'll have either more than one office location or a possibility where the user, the IT administrator, or whoever is on the site, they can take the actual phone with them home to another office, or if they have a hotspot they can connect to, just to see if the issue stays with the network location or it follows the actual phone. So that's another really good approach to it. And then obviously comparing the debug level purity and PCAP from a working phone versus a phone that's having issues. Regarding debug level purities, you're going to need to unzip this, and then I'm a big fan of using Notepad++ to do global searches within a debug level purity, and then you should see communication challenges, if you will, at points of time. But in any case, the PCAP generally tends to be a little bit easier to read specifically for this type of troubleshooting. And as I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, the DF setting option is not offered within WebEx Control Hub, at least at the recording of this video. Currently, the firmware that is being used at Control Hub when I'm recording this video is 12.05 SR1. So this is October of 2024. It's being recorded. So this point of time, this setting is not offered. You would want to open up a TAC case with Cisco technical support if you feel the symptom and the general items I'm stating here kind of match up to what you're seeing in your deployment. And then once you open up a TAC case, I would suggest go ahead and try it on 1 or 2 phones just to validate this is actually the issue before you do an entire site, if you will. Because as I mentioned, it is possible there may be other items that can cause this same type of symptom. And without evidence, you don't want to jump to any type of conclusions. When you open up the TAC case, you want to definitely provide your org ID for your WebEx Control Hub and the MAC addresses of the phones that are having issues. And if you're just doing proof of concept testing, you're having this type of issue, just provide 1 or 2 MAC addresses of phones, preferably phones that are by either an IT person or somebody that will be available to make sure that the phone is functioning correctly after the settings have been changed. And obviously in WebEx Control Hub, you'll be able to see if the settings, the status for the phone actually shows online or not. And then after the settings are adjusted on the back end of WebEx Control Hub, the phones typically need to be rebooted for the settings to be adjusted or allowed to resync overnight. And you can also try applying the settings, because generally applying the settings should also trigger it. The only problem is if the phone is showing offline, you won't be able to go and apply the setting. It won't be offered. So in that case, this is why I say rebooting the phone, just having the user unplug the RJ45, assuming it's a PoE deployment with the phone, and then plugging back in will do the trick. Or if you have access to the respective switch where the phone is located on that switch port, do a shutdown and no shutdown. They'll kind of give you equivalent. Or you can just kind of wait overnight. And typically the phones, the telephony equipment registered to WebEx Calling does automatic resync overnight. Hopefully this video is helpful if you're having issues with 3 PCC phones that are deployed on WebEx Calling that show a status that is not online, but yet the phones are functioning correctly. Thank you for watching the video.